Sergio Leone nasceu em 1929, filho de dois astros do cinema mudo italiano. Embora no início tenha sido criado em uma família rica, seu pai caiu em desgraça com o governo de Mussolini e Leone passou a maior parte da infância brincando com outras crianças na escadaria da Viale Glorioso e nas ruas estreitas e populosas do Trastevere, no centro de Roma. Posicionando-se contra a política repressiva dos fascistas, o jovem Leone era fascinado pelo sonho americano retratado nos westerns de Hollywood.
His provenance as a child of Mussolini's Italy is something that has been neglected. I mean, there's lots of references in the movies to Leone growing up. There's, in Fistful of Dynamite in particular, you know that scene where Rod Steiger's family is wiped out in the cave. This relates to a very famous incident in the Second World War called the Ardeatine Ditches, the Fosse Ardeatine, where a whole lot of Roman civilians were massacred by the SS in a cave, and the cave was sealed up. It's still a memorial, like a Holocaust museum in Rome. Everyone in Rome seeing that would have known what that referred to. That's a reference to the Second World War.
Seu cinismo, nascido durante o governo de Mussolini, ganhou força quando, pela primeira vez, ele se deparou com norte-americanos de verdade. Os soldados comuns do Exército de Libertação que encontrou não lembravam nem um pouco seus heróis das telas. Esse cinismo estaria presente em toda a obra cinematográfica que construiria depois. Começou a cursar Direito, mas logo tomou o rumo do cinema. Entre 1945 e 1959, trabalhou como assistente de direção em mais de 50 filmes, com mestres do cinema italiano como De Sica e Bonnard. Foi nessa época que conheceu sua futura esposa.
Sposassimo, lui mi diceva: ma tu pensi che diventerò un regista, che ce la farò? E io gli dicevo: tu vai avanti per la tua strada, non ti lasciare imbrigliare per cose che ti convengono, tu devi essere determinato, io sono sicura che ce la fai. Infatti lui se l'è sempre ricordata questa cosa.
Em meados dos anos 50, produtores norte-americanos desembarcaram na Itália para produzir os filmes que seriam conhecidos como os épicos de espada e sandálias. A estreia de Leone como diretor foi em Os Últimos Dias de Pompeia, que assumiu porque o diretor que consta nos créditos, Mario Bonnard, adoeceu no primeiro dia de filmagem. Logo depois, Leone fez seu primeiro filme creditado como diretor, O Colosso de Rhodes.
It's almost unique. I mean, he makes his own movie. It's quite successful, a sword and sandal thing about the Colossus of Rhodes, shot in Spain. And then he retreats to becoming an assistant again on Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, here's someone who's frightened of putting his head above the parapet.
When he started his career, he made those sandals movies, you know. But he was working inside, waiting for the moment.
Na época, como hoje em dia, a indústria cinematográfica italiana se concentrava ao redor do estúdio da Cinecittà, em Roma. No começo dos anos 60, esse estúdio, que já fora grandioso, entrou em crise quando diversos épicos sobre o Império Romano fracassaram na bilheteria e os investimentos norte-americanos foram interrompidos. As milhares de salas de cinema da Itália precisavam de filmes novos para exibir. Como os westerns norte-americanos sempre foram populares entre as plateias do Sul, os produtores italianos resolveram fabricar, sem gastar muito, o seu próprio produto para alimentar esse mercado. Filmados no sul da Espanha, eram estrelados por atores norte-americanos desconhecidos e toda a equipe usava pseudônimos para manter a ilusão de que eram filmes norte-americanos. Quando Leone entrou no jogo, já haviam sido produzidos 25 dos chamados westerns spaghetti. Acreditava-se que o gênero estava saturado.
Quando lui aveva la sua sceneggiatura per un pugno di dollari, praticamente tutte le mattine si svegliava con il suo bel fascicolo sotto il braccio e faceva il giro delle produzioni. La mattina partiva come un grande eroe, la sera tornava come un poveraccio. Però la mattina ripartiva sempre come un eroe, non è che perdesse.
Quando sua proposta foi finalmente aceita, o filme deveria ser apenas para recuperação, ou seja, um filme que ajudaria a recuperar o investimento feito em uma produção mais importante, utilizando os mesmos cenários e figurino. Mas por um punhado de dólares, acabou obscurecendo o filme principal, um western mais tradicional chamado Le Pistole non discutono. O enigmático herói de Por um punhado de dólares foi interpretado por Clint Eastwood, descoberto por Leone quando interpretava o educado Rowdy Yates na série para a TV Rawhide.
I came here 32 or 33 years ago to meet a director who was not well known, like I was not well known as an actor, and to embark on this very small film, a remake of a Japanese samurai story on the plains of Spain for an Italian, German, Spanish co-production. And it was a very humble project, to say the least. I don't think any of us anticipated that it would make a career for us, but we all thought it was going to be great fun being a pistolero on the plains of Spain. And then all of a sudden, a year or so later, things started to happen. And if I hadn't come here on that journey with Sergio Leone and Morricone and all and Massimo Dallamano and Tonino Delacoli and all of the crew, who knows where I would have ended up in the history of things.
The American Westerns start and we go on and on and on with music and cow and ladies and Indians. And after we have to arrive at the gunshot, final gunshot. Every 3-4 minutes in my movie have to be a gunshot. So we have to create character that do that. This was his imagination. It was right.
In America, the convention was you could never show in the same shot. Someone pulls a gun, boom, and shoots them. You always had to have a cut. This was a long, long convention in Hollywood that went back to the Hays Code. You couldn't tie together the weapon and its effect. In every movie, Leone didn't know anything about that. So he just has people pulling guns, boom. And suddenly everyone, oh, you can do that, you know. So Americans start presenting violence in that way. So he has a huge impact there.
Get 3 coffins ready.
Huh? He also created one of, the greatest screen icons in the history of cinema, Clint Eastwood. If he was going out to do his version of the John Ford movies, well, he actually is the only director to really compete with Ford when it came to creating his own icon. The way Ford created John Wayne, he created the actor to finally replace John Wayne in the histories of and the annals of cinema.
My mule. You see, he got all riled up when you men fired those shots at his feet.
It's a new kind of hero. It's not a hero that you identify with. It's not a hero you're supposed to look up to. It's a kind of style statement. You know, he's the hero because he's fastest with a gun, because he looks the most stylish, and it's a hell of a design thing. I mean, a very Italian sense of design in all these costumes that they wear. And he's just cool, super cool.
I don't think it's nice, you laughing. See, my mule don't like people laughing. It's the crazy idea you're laughing at him. Now, if you apologize like I know you're going to, I might convince him that you really didn't mean it.
Clint hated smoking those little cigars. I think he'd get nauseous, But it was established and he had to keep doing it,
My mistake. 4 coffins.
Por um punhado de dólares foi um sucesso imediato na Itália e logo se tornou o primeiro western italiano a ser distribuído nos Estados Unidos, onde foi exibido com o nome verdadeiro de Leone. Para a sequência, por uns dólares a mais, Leone escalou Lee Van Cleef como carismático parceiro de Eastwood. Na época, Van Cleef tinha desistido de atuar, bebia muito e vivia precariamente como pintor.
He was amazing at casting, I think, and suddenly it turned them into something that Hollywood had never imagined. You know, Lee Van Cleef had made, you know, countless films as the second baddie from the left, and nobody noticed, you know, in High Noon, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. But Leone didn't forget, you know, something about that profile. Same with Eastwood. He really had a gift for, you know, how people look and how they'll come over on the screen.
Hey, mister, you just can't pull the emergency cord and jump off. Tell me, why'd you stop that train? If you want to get off, you... Well, the railroad company would be mighty pleased to make any arrangements for any passenger if you want to get off here, sir.
I did get off. Thanks.
Quando a produção de Três Homens em Conflito teve início, o sucesso internacional de Leone elevara tanto seu orçamento que o cachê de Eastwood, agora em $250 mil, já era maior do que todo o orçamento de Por um Punhado de Dólares.
There was a degree of realism in his movies, as surrealistic as they were, that was always seemed to be missing from the Hollywood westerns of the 30s and the 40s and the 50s.
He said, I will approach the Western in another way. I will not dress them as they do in all the American Westerns. I'll go back to Matthew Brady's Prince, and I'll dig out these long dusters that the men wore in the picture, and the clothes. He did wonderful things like all the military men are posing for pictures just as I'm being led to get on the train. Clint was a wonderful guide for me, particularly when they were going to blow up the bridge. He said, don't go anywhere near explosives. You never know what's going to happen.
Are you sure? Yeah, sure, I'm sure.
Most of the soldiers were Spaniards who were loaned by the Franco government to the film to play Civil War soldiers. They built the bridge, and the captain, a Spanish army captain, put the dynamite around so that it would blow up. And the man, the Italian scenic designer, said, listen, I'm so pleased with your work. I would like you to put the two wires together and blow it. So when I say, vaya, go, you do it. The Italian scenic specialist said to an assistant, vaya, meaning set that camera moving, and the captain, thinking he said vaya for him, put the two wires together. And Leone was looking up at the sky like this, looking for the clouds to go by him, and the bridge blew.
Io degli colli, diceva, io non ho preso niente, sai, non ho preso niente perché ero fermo. E tu dici, ma che facciamo? E lui ha detto, ma facciamo pausa.
Vengo da un'esperienza, prima del cinema, da un'esperienza di musica d'avanguardia, anche sperimentale. E la musica d'avanguardia sperimentale spesso ha tentato di recuperare suoni extramusicali. I suoni di animali, i suoni di campane, di frusta, di incudini e di altri suoni strani, i fischi, gli archilofoni, queste cose qua mi è venuto proprio normale e spontaneo. Viene da questa mia ricerca d'avanguardia che feci ancora prima di lavorare per il cinema. Del resto era una mia aspirazione e il cinema di Sergio ne ha usufruito.
Arrivava Ennio con tutti i pezzetti di carta piccolissimi in cui non capivamo che potesse leggere, c'erano 3 note e si metteva a suonare, canticchiava o fischiava e Sergio regolarmente veniva a sapere che c'erano delle musiche che Ennio aveva scritto per un altro film.
Tendo desenvolvido sua técnica como cineasta na trilogia dos dólares, Leone partiu para uma outra trilogia mais ambiciosa. Desta vez, de proporções épicas, começando com Era uma Vez no Oeste.
He had a huge canvas on which he worked psychologically, historically, even in terms of the economic understanding of the development of America, because you know that triptych of Once Upon a Time in America, working backwards, Once Upon a Time in the Revolution, which is in this country known as Duck-You-Sucker, and Once Upon a Time in the West. And if you start with Once Upon a Time in the West and go all the way through, I mean, it's sort of the European Marxist view of the, you know, founding of America at the hands of robber barons and organized crime. And it's not far from wrong, by the way, if at all. The greatest scene he ever directed was the opening sequence of Once Upon a Time in the West.
Morricone took Leone to see a performance artist at work. And this performance artist was performing Symphony for a metal ladder, right? So this guy comes on the stage with a highly amplified microphone with a metal ladder and goes squeak, 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 and does this piece of music entirely with a ladder. The idea being all sounds are music. You know, it's a modern interpretation of music. And they went home and they thought, let's do that with the first scene.
It's like a haiku poem, you know, it's just flawless. I mean, it's extraordinary filmmaking.
Il Dolly, per esempio, bellissimo Dolly di C'era una volta al West, quando la Cardinale esce dalla stazione e va verso la vallata, quella cosa, quella io l'ho scritta prima. E lui ha girato col Dolly a tempo con la musica. E la musica era in scena. Ecco, quindi non mi sono ispirato io, è lui che si è ispirato. Capito? E questa è la forza di Sergio, e la forza della musica e del suo cinema. Perché lui cercava una vera grande collaborazione col compositore e non lasciava andare le cose come venivano, insomma. Curava molto la musica, come curava la sua immagine, come curava tutti gli altri suoni, non soltanto la musica. Lui è stato un maestro del suono, del suo cinema.
The train pulls up, people get out, she climbs out, they give her her bags, and she stands looking for somebody, the man. But he's not there because Henry Fonda killed him.
All right, shut down those feed sacks first. Come on, come on.
She walks up and down the platform of where the train is. The train is still sound effects and the vapor and all of that is still there. And horses coming out of the boxcars.
This was fantastic, because usually, really, the woman is like an object. I mean, it's just the woman there. But in this film, the woman was the center of everything. The way he looked at the woman, he loved the women. And you could see that in the movie, the way he looked at me. One thing marvelous, he loved the actors. And for him, the actors were queens and kings. He was just fantastic.
Sergio was very encouraging to me. I think that his sensitivity that way towards actors is something that's kind of unusual in director. But Sergio was a real artist. I mean, he just loved anybody who made his film better, whether it was the actors or the set dresser or whoever it might be.
All of those close-ups, those intense close-ups, especially with the lead who had those wide-brim hats, and he'd start the close-up on the hat, and slowly the brim would rise into the eyes. Now, actors loved that. Fonda loved it.
This is your American Western. This is the tradition I grew up. Now watch me subvert it. And how am I going to subvert it? I'm going to cast Henry Fonda, all right, one of your favorite good guys, as the baddest guy.
Seu talento e sua reputação cresciam e grandes nomes de Hollywood queriam trabalhar com ele. Embora seus cronogramas de filmagem se estendessem mais do que o da maioria das produções hollywoodianas, os atores respeitavam sua atenção ao detalhe e seu jeito calmo de trabalhar.
We'd have wonderful long lunches. Charlie Bronson would say, hey, wait a minute, what is this? Why don't we get back on the set and get working? And Hank Fonda and I would say, relax, Charlie, relax. You'll never get it like this again. This is a great atmosphere here.
Tutte le persone che hanno lavorato con lui nel set mi raccontano, prima di dirmi che grande professionista, che grande regista, la prima cosa che mi dicono quante risate ci siamo fatti. In questo io voglio dire, secondo me è proprio l'aspetto che poi di papà nelle varie interviste, nelle cose, forse non è mai uscito fuori, no? Perché aveva l'aspetto un po' burbero, lui con questo sguardo penetrante.
We had this big Chapman crane, and I don't think he'd ever had a Chapman before. And seeing him sitting on the Chapman crane going up and down, you know, and he was just having, his legs were kind of dangling out in space, having a wonderful time with this toy, you know, it was just great, you know.
Due punti di vista no, ma litigare per delle stupidaggini sì, molto. Ma come moglie e marito, dopo 5 minuti era finita, andiamo a mangiare. No, sì, beh, ma capita. Con lui che era un pignolo poi impunito, come si dice in Italia, non so tradotto come fate, non so. E insisteva in certe cose che magari molte cose delle volte era impossibile farle, insomma. Lui ci provava poi.
This man was a big baby. He was huge, but it was like a big baby. And he adored the West. But I don't think the West was grand enough for him, so he created his own West. Everything was a bit bigger, everything was a bit louder.
Duck, you sucker.
My favorite scene was not very exciting. It's when we arrive, and I stand with my back towards the audience, and there's the bank of gold we've been trying to find. And why it was nice for me, because Sergio, when he got excited, would go like that with his hands. I don't know, he'd be talking to you. So when I saw the bank in the movie, I went, I imitated his hands. That I liked. I don't know.
The thing I recall about Sergio was his sincerity. He was very sincere about everything. He was sincere about what he wanted to be done. He was sincere about the way he shot it. He was sincere, you know, like it was, and he had a sense of humor, you know, like, and he was sincere about the sense of humor, you know, like he had that And that was one of the really nice things about him. He was really sincere, you know. When he gave you a hug, you knew that it was a hug and it was a sincere one. It wasn't just a brush arrow, you know.
Leone terminou Quando Explode a Vingança em 1971 e, para surpresa geral, ficou sem dirigir outro filme por mais de 10 anos.
Si è preso un periodo così lungo perché lui aveva letto un piccolo libro tascabile che si intitolava A mano armata e si era innamorato di questa storia e voleva farla.
Enquanto continuavam as negociações para adquirir os direitos de The Hoods, Leone passava seu tempo apadrinhando diretores jovens e produzindo diversos filmes como Meu Nome é Ninguém, com Henry Fonda. Embora não tenha dirigido nenhum filme nesse período, recebeu vários prêmios pelos comerciais para a TV que dirigiu, sempre com a característica música de Morricone.
Mi divertiva vedere papà come lavorava, come era attento, che grandissimo professionista era sul set, cosa che poi ho potuto verificare di persona qualche anno più tardi, quando avevo 20 anni, un anno prima che lui morisse, girammo una pubblicità in Africa e io andai lì, diciamo, ero l'aiuto dell'aiuto dell'aiuto. Una grandissima energia, cioè proprio sprigionava una grandissima energia sul set, impressionante, era una stacanovista del lavoro. Questo per me, che l'ho sempre visto come padre, un po' pigro, un po' diciamo sempre a casa, sul suo lavoro, era un aspetto che non conoscevo e che mi sorprese.
In quel periodo lui a casa era come un orco. Noi scappavamo, tant'è che scappavano i figli da tutte le parti perché sentivano sempre questa voce roboante che c'aveva da lamentarsi, no, da gridare per qualcosa. Insomma, era diventata una vita difficile. E allora io gli ho proprio detto: guarda che tu stai cambiando carattere e non sei felice. Tu non puoi essere quello che sei e importi di fare una cosa que não te riguarda.
Após obter os direitos para filmar The Hoods, seguiu-se um prolongado período em que uma equipe de roteiristas, incluindo a renomada parceria entre Leo Benvenuti e Piero de Bernardi, começou a criar o que se transformaria em Era uma Vez na América.
Noi siamo entrati in una fase insomma, abbastanza avanzata, però questo qui comunque ci abbiamo lavorato per 12 anni lo stesso, ecco. Insomma, è stata forse la sceneggiatura più lunga della storia del cinema.
During the script writing, he was shooting the film in his mind, you know, which made things much easier, you know, when, you know, the film was actually made and shot.
Walking up and down aimlessly on the Croisette in Cannes, I see on the terrace of the Carlton Hotel an unmistakable face. Oh my God, this is Sergio Leone. Now, I did not know at that time that he was sitting on that terrace for 11 years waiting for a guy to walk over, introduce himself and say, may I write a check and finance a movie and produce it? So he was delighted. He said, sit down, have a coffee, and he told me the story frame by frame, literally on real time. I think it was 3 hours and 47 minutes, and I was seeing the movie. And I got up, I gave him a hug and said, I'm in.
All the people, all the crew, I think could feel that would be a great movie. I mean, that we're all making something special.
He was very powerful, very in charge. I mean, you knew that this man was in charge of this movie and in charge of every single detail that was going to happen. It was very intimidating at first. Nobody on the set spoke any English, including Sergio. And he knew every look that was going to be in this film before he even shot it. He knew every moment how it was going to play out before he shot it.
I remember very specifically him looking at a page in which Noodles, the Robert De Niro character, meets Tuesday Weld in a hospital. And he looked at it and he said, I need 10 more words. And he pointed to a line, Tuesday Weld line. And I said, isn't it okay the way it is? He said, it's fine, I need 10 more words. And I said, why? And he said, she's going to walk from here to there, and I want her to talk all the way there. He already knew what the set was going to look like. He knew how far she would walk. He knew where the camera was going to be before a set had been built, before anything had been done, and he knew he needed 10 more words to get Tuesday Weld across the room.
He had the vision, knew exactly what he wanted. He would get it every time, and yet he wasn't against being shown something completely different that we might come up with as actors, you know. So he had the best of both worlds going from, as far as I'm concerned, you know, an extraordinary vision, the temperament and discipline and talent to bring it to fruition, and the kind of flexible ego that would allow input from people that would make things even better than he had imagined them if that were possible. And quite frankly, it very often was not possible to make it better than he envisioned.
He would demonstrate physically absolutely everything.
He was an actor. This man was an actor, and he could act Once Upon a Time in America from start to finish, 3 hours and 45 minutes, play all the different parts and be convincing. That's how brilliant he was.
He even had explained and talked to Ennio Morricone about the music so much in advance that 2/3 of the music was recorded, not full orchestra, and playing on the set while we were shooting. It was like amazing. You go on the set and the music is playing already. It was magic.
Once we were doing a scene where Bobby gets out of prison and I'm supposed to meet him, and Sergio's on this big crane. We're down in the Bedford-Stuyvesant, or the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. We're on the street, and Sergio said, oh, it's going to rain. So he's sitting on the crane waiting because he was a big wide shot of the street, and as we come together, the crane comes down and comes right into the two of us, and Sergio wanted to start raining in the middle of the shot. So he was like trying to time the shot, you know, like, I mean, they couldn't get rain machines in because the shot was so wide to begin with. And I thought only Sergio Leone would wait for God, like, to have it start raining in the middle of the take, you know, and trust that when he said action, God would accommodate him by, you know, letting the clouds open up. And, you know, much to my, well, actually not surprised, but to my never-ending astonishment of working with Sergio Leone, you know, we did the take, and of course, in the middle of the take, it started raining. So there it was, you know. I said, you know, there it is.
How are you, Uncle? You're looking good. You're looking a little better. Come on. Let's get you off the streets.
Everyone has had a big consideration of him, but not only as a director, as a man. I love to think that he used to spend his nights, I mean, his dinner with everyone. It wasn't a star, never. So we spent nights cooking in the hotel where we were staying with the technical or De Niro or whatever. I mean, it was the same thing. People he loved, people he liked to stay with.
A few weeks before it came out, they decided to use the assistant editor of Police Academy or something, you know, to chop it all up and tell it in linear fashion, which is the whole point of how the story was made, was that it's not in linear fashion. I mean, it was the telling of the story that made it such an extraordinary film. And I remember it was a huge disappointment to me and so on, and Sergio had been so great. And, you know, when we were at the Cannes Film Festival, where it had its world premiere, you know, the reviews and the response was so astounding. I remember one article that said, headline said, you know, filmmakers cast your films into the sea. Leone is here with Once Upon, you know, it's like, because it was like that. I mean, it just got this 15-minute standing ovation, and then was butchered, and I thought it must have broken his heart.
Today, what I would have done, I would have opened it in a couple of theaters, started word of mouth going. I was really, truly naive. I did not know a lot of things.
There are 3 versions released in the United States that I know of, and then there's a much longer version, which is the definitive version that's never been shown in the United States. The first 2 versions, which were the initially released ones, which got very, very bad reviews, were not only shortened, but the time sequence was changed. The film is a series of flashbacks to 2 different periods, plus the present, which is 1968 in the film. And by going back and trying to arrange it chronologically, which is what happened when the film was released initially, it doesn't make any sense.
Imagine how horribly unorganized the release was, to a point that they forgot to enter Ennio Morricone's music to register. Or Ennio would have gotten Academy Award for sure. It's probably the best score in the history of the movie business, by far.
The last time I saw Serge was in Paris, actually. We had lunch at, I don't know, someplace. And he was telling me about how they had ruined his Once Upon a Time in America. How they made him cut a lot out, you know, they had to cut the time out, and, you know, and really, and he was really sad about that. You know, he said, I spent a lot of time in making a nice movie, and they take all the essence out. And I said, well, you can put it back in, man. Put it back in.
There is another half hour we are planning to put back and come with a full director's version. This time I know what to do.
A intensidade do cronograma de produção de Era Uma Vez na América teve um custo altíssimo para a saúde de Leone. Foram diagnosticados graves problemas cardíacos.
Però sapevo anche che purtroppo l'unica alternativa era quella di fare un trapianto. E non so quanto questo lui lo sapeva, quindi avrebbe accettato questo.
A ideia de fazer um filme sobre o cerco a Leningrado durante a Segunda Guerra Mundial seduzia Leone há algum tempo. Ao concluir Era Uma Vez na América, ele embarcou nesse projeto ainda mais ambicioso. Leningrado deveria marcar a história do cinema ao juntar produtores de Hollywood em uma coprodução inédita com o governo soviético.
Immagina un po' se un presidente americano di una compagnia di questo tipo puoi pensare che scelga di fare un film che gli viene raccontato. Renditi conto.
We start, Christopher, with Shostakovich's hands. And the camera goes back from the hands through a net curtain, and we realize we're in a helicopter. And the helicopter goes to the left past this block of apartments, and next to it are all these people in Leningrad getting up at the beginning of a day to go to work and to go to the front. So here's a tram and some trucks, and the siege is on, so there's all these images of an inferno of a siege, you know, cannibalism, corpses burning, people trying to dismember their pets, you know, dead relatives being pulled along in the snow, an absolute Dantean inferno of the siege. The camera goes to the left. This is one shot. The camera goes to the left. We've had the block of flats, we've had all this teeming life. The trams go round, they go to the edge of the city, where the people get off the trams, get into the trucks. The camera continues going left. The trucks go to the river. The camera goes across the river, where there's an entire panzer division of 200 tanks. The camera is still going to the left, one shot. And it goes right up to the panzer tank commander, to his 2 eyes through goggles. And the voice says, fire! The camera goes blank. A Sergio Leone film. The only other thought he had was it was to be about an American newsreel reporter who falls in love with a Soviet girl, which is forbidden, and that the American would die at the end, only you wouldn't see him die. What you'd see is a piece of newsreel footage that he was shooting, and the camera would go up in the air, and the woman is in the cinema, and she sees that her boyfriend has died by the footage that he shot. And that's a Leone moment. You understand the person's death through the movies.
I know that the doctors told him that he would have to have a quiet life, I mean, or more quiet, that he have to be careful, but couldn't do that. I mean, it was, saying my father stop making movie or change your mind would be killing him, so it would be the same. So I couldn't do that.
His concentration was so intense on what he was doing, and all his energy went into that project. As he said, I lose 5 years of my life on every picture, and I saw it happening. I mean, him putting an hour in is like most directors putting 4 hours in.
When I first started filmmaking, there was all these little filmmaking expressions I didn't know and everything, and so I would just kind of make up stuff, and that became the expression as far as the term was concerned on the set. And the biggest one was I always knew how to say an extreme close-up, but again, I always I'm thinking in terms of the effect I want, and so I'd say I want a Sergio Leone. Okay, so give me a Sergio Leone here, and then when I'm saying Sergio Leone, that's more important than saying an extreme close-up, because anybody can give you an extreme close-up. When I say give me a Sergio Leone, I'm implying the feel.
La sua maniera di porsi di fronte al film, di fronte alla maniera responsabile e creativa che lui ha fatto nel suo cinema. Io penso con grande rammarico a quello che lui avrebbe potuto fare se fosse rimasto in vita. Non so fino a dove poteva arrivare il suo miglioramento. Questo è un grave rammarico per il cinema italiano e per il cinema mondiale.
You know, on my deathbed, you know, and somebody says, you know, what was the greatest artistic experience you ever had? It was working with Sergio Leone. There's no doubt about it. It was the Everest of my life, you know. And I never got a chance to tell him that because I was too young or confused or too shy to call him up and sort of say it, you know, and so on. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview is to sort of say it so somebody in the world could hear it.
I know a lot of people when they're interviewed will say something like, that was one of the most exciting periods of my life, the most exciting things I ever worked. What do you mean the most? That includes a lot of other things then too. No, that was the most exciting creative experience I've ever had.
Many times when I'm shooting a movie with a director, you know, he's putting the camera and I think of Sergio and I say, Sergio, unfortunately, it's not you here today.
I wish he were still around.
Às vezes, meu jeito de ver as coisas é ingênuo, mas tem a sinceridade das crianças da escadaria da Viale Glorioso. Sergio Leone, 1929-1989.
A cúpula da Basílica de São Pedro, no coração de Roma, domina a paisagem do país mais incomum do mundo. O Vaticano é um estado independente no meio da capital da Itália. É o lar do Papa, o último monarca absoluto da Europa. Suas muralhas imponentes lembram uma fortaleza secreta. Seu exército particular sugere exclusividade. Mas é também um local de trabalho. Daqui, o Papa lidera 1 bilhão de católicos no mundo inteiro. Mas poucas pessoas testemunham o que acontece por trás das portas fechadas deste Estado único. Vaticano, por dentro da cidade eterna. O Vaticano é um mundo particular, com uma estação de rádio própria. Obras de arte inestimáveis são catalogadas e restauradas. Simples mortais elevam-se à comunidade sagrada dos santos. Jovens dedicam-se ao sacerdócio e dentro dos salões privados do Vaticano, os diplomatas do mundo prestam homenagens.
Tem?
Como qualquer outro país, o Vaticano tem seu próprio governo. Ele é administrado por um norte-americano, o cardeal Edmund Schoka, cujo papel é algo entre um governador e um prefeito.
Eu sou responsável pelas operações cotidianas da cidade do Vaticano. Eu quero ler isso de novo antes que eles cheguem. É um Estado soberano, é um país soberano.
Não, isso é tudo.
Ótimo, pode ir. Isso é muito importante para o Santo Padre. Porque se ele estivesse morando em algum outro país, estaria sujeito às leis civis deste país. E estaria sujeito a um rei, um presidente ou outra autoridade. Na minha opinião, é uma razão muito prática haver este território.
O território do Vaticano tem apenas 44 hectares, um precioso reino fortificado com uma atmosfera mágica. Totalmente diferente da agitação da cidade de Roma que o cerca. Seus jardins raramente são vistos por estrangeiros, mas representam 1/3 de sua área. Eles são como um mundo secreto, tranquilo e lindamente ornamentado. 5.000 pessoas trabalham para o Vaticano, mas apenas 500 vivem dentro de suas muralhas. E menos da metade tem passaportes do Vaticano. A entrada é rigidamente controlada. Ninguém passa pelos portões sem autorização especial. Lá dentro, todas as salas são guardadas. O Vaticano tem suas próprias lojas, correio e até um posto de